Hey guys, this is Steve Rosenthal from PowerTown Wrestling, originally with Remco Toys back in the 80s, and I am really excited. I've been looking forward to getting together with Jared and Jimmy on giving me back my pro wrestling. I hope you guys enjoy what I've got to say as much as I enjoy sharing it.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. I'm Dean Hill, see you at ringside.
Welcome to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and today we've got a very special guest, Mr. Steve Rosenthal from PowerTown Wrestling, formerly Remco Toys.
From Remco.
And the cool thing is I've got the Plastic Sheik with me in studio, ladies and gentlemen. Say hello to the listeners, Plastic Sheik.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
So yeah, what's cool is I'm actually staying at the Plastic Sheik.
Casa de Sheik.
Yeah, Casa de Sheik. Getting to stay here visiting with family while we're in town. I've got my son Cash with me, Michelle, getting to see his family. It's been nice to be together. And today, of course, we've got an interview with Mr. Steve Rosenthal from Remco Toys and PowerTown Wrestling. Just talk a little bit, Jared, about the thoughts of this interview and how cool that is.
Well, we've had this in the pipeline for a while, and it's just so cool that it's finally happening today. Steve is going to be an amazing interview. I know from interviews I've heard with him before, he's a talker. So, I mean, he's going to give you 100% on everything he does when he's talking about his time in the toy business, from Remco to now his startup with PowerTown. He's doing amazing work, and I think if everything goes as planned, it's going to be an amazing time for wrestling figure collectibles.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And more down the pipeline. I think everything I see from them is just top notch. I mean, they took out Ted DiBiase because of a Legends contract dispute and replaced him with probably arguably the one figure that I might actually buy would be the Bruiser Brody figure. I mean, a start like that has got to say something, for a company, for sure.
Yeah, Bruiser Brody's going to be an amazing figure. I've seen the head sculpts and everything like that on their Facebook page, and he's got the hamburger meat like forehead that Bruiser Brody had from so many years in those battles he had with Abdullah the Butcher and other people. So it's going to be amazing.
And I agree. Just can't wait to see that. The one thing that I will say is I honestly am just excited for more wrestling stuff. I guess the way it looks to me is the more wrestling stuff that's out there means better and more awesome stuff for us. So, with that being said, now we are down one host today, but I want to make the official announcement that officially the Plastic Sheik has been moved up to the big leagues. So we are now announcing that Jared, the Plastic Sheik, is going to be a full host, no longer just going to be relegated to the segments of the action figure and stuff. Of course, if you can't make it to an episode, that's fine. There's always the free bird rule, but welcome to the big league, Sheik.
Oh, thanks. It means a lot. I have had a great time and just doing the Plastic Sheik figure segments in the past, but I'm honored and happy to do, more full-time stuff with the interviews and discussions we have. So it's a great time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, it's going to be awesome, and I'm glad to have my brother active in something that I'm getting to do too. So you're always going to hear more wrestling and more, thoughts on wrestling, especially from the old days and beyond. But I guess with that being said, you want to get Steve on the phone here?
Yeah, let's get him on.
All right, sounds good. Hey, we'll be right back after these messages.
Ladies and gentlemen, a tag team extravaganza! Let the battle royale begin! Looks like Hawk is about to drop in on the fabulous ones. Uh-oh, the Baron's after the animal. Boo! But the animal has other plans. Will you look at this? Rick Martel is throwing Steve Kern right out of the ring. Oh my, and the Hawk has Stan Lane all tied up, and he's mad! Yes!
The Battle Royale playset comes complete with 6 figures, referee, and official wrestling ring from Remco.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Action figure.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And today we have the co-founder and managing partner of PowerTown, and honestly, one of the coolest guys in the business, Mr. Steve Rosenthal. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and thank you for that introduction. I'll make sure I tell Sheik Adnan Casey what you said.
Thank you. That's excellent. Well, we've got to figure out how to get Jared one of those action figures one of these days. So I'll tell you this up front. Sheik is he's part of the PowerTown roster. He's living in Hawaii. He's doing well, and I promise you, we will get you one of his figures as soon as it's up and running. Well, that's very exciting. Awesome. So basically, to start off, Steve, I want to talk a little bit about Remco. So Remco, sure. Obviously, my brother and he and I were so fulfilled by having Remco in our life. Just to run down a few things. So basically, Remco was founded by two cousins, Isaac Heller and Saul Robbins. The name Remco came from two words put together, remote control, and it was originally located in Newark, New Jersey, right, Steve?
The original Remco, which was founded by the two cousins, Saul Robbins, who I knew, who lived around the corner from my cousin in West Orange, New Jersey, was founded in Newark. Their factory was in Harrison, and I'll let you take it from there.
Where were you introduced to those guys, and where was your start in the toy business?
Yeah, well, I actually started with Ideal Toys. First action figure product I ever worked on was Evel Knievel back in the 70s. Okay. Yeah, 3407. Nice. Hottest item I ever sold in my entire life. It was unbelievable. But I was only there for 2 years. I basically went through Ideal. I left kind of after he jumped Snake River Canyon and was recruited by Remco. But let me try to correct a little bit about the history of Remco. Remco was one of the premier toy companies back in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. Two gentlemen by the name of Marvin Azrak and Ezra Hamway owned a company called AHI, which was Azrak Hamway International. What they did is they recruited guys like myself and others who had a background in TV promoted goods. And the concept was to introduce product into the marketplace with the purpose of promoting them on TV. But like myself, I thought Azrak Hamway was something that they had to take an aspirin for it to go away. I had never heard of Azrak Hamway. So we made a decision because Remco basically went into receivership and was pretty much owned by the banks. So for $25,000, we bought the IP, the trademark, the copyright of Remco, and it became a kind of a DBA, doing business as for Azrak Hamway International. Azrak Hamway International was kind of a rack toy company. They were very, very heavy into licensing, but they did things like, parachutes, water guns, all of that kind of stuff you find on a rack or on a wall in Toys R Us when you walked into the left-hand side. So when we came in, we stayed with everything that was basic in Azrak Hamway. We stayed with all the licensed merchandise, but we started introducing radio control merchandise and some more higher priced goods. And it was in the, I don't remember what we did, like the magic hat. We did one item that had to do with Earthquake Tower, we called it. I mean, and these were great items. Okay. And then we also did McDonald Land figures. But after that, as the company started to grow, and we ended up becoming the largest privately owned toy company in the industry, it was really in the 80s when we really started to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on TV.
Right.
And we had a lot of success from 80 to 84. And throughout that time, I started to become a wrestling fan along with my boys. And in like, I guess it was 85, 84, we were just sitting on the couch, and I think we were watching either W, or could have been WCW, but I know it was NWO. I mean, we were really into WWE, you know, everything that the NWA was doing, Crockett, the whole thing.
Sure.
And I looked at my boys and I said, you know, these are real life superheroes.
Yeah.
And I was not one to sit back on any of my past successes. The next morning, as God is my witness, I called up Vince McMahon, and I told him who I was. I told him what he wanted to do. He said, "When do you want to get together?" I was up there within an hour and a half. He was in Stamford, Connecticut. He had a very, very, very small office. It was just him and Linda, and no receptionist. I walked in, Vince comes out. He was a young man. I walked in, Vince comes out, you know, and, you know, we shook hands. I learned later what that handshake meant, but that's a whole other story. But so we go in, we sit down. I tell him what I wanted to do. He was absolutely incredibly excited. And we started the process of, I gave him a check for $25,000. We had not even signed an agreement. And that's how eager I was to make sure I had the license locked up. But remember, right. I didn't have a written agreement. Right. So we started development, and the first figure that we developed, of course, was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And we actually, somewhere in this world, the holy grail of that clay sculpture still exists. I don't know where it is. It was the first wrestling figure that was, other than things that were coming out of Japan, but it was the first real submission start, iteration, whatever you want to call it, of an action figure. And somewhere in this world, it's probably in our old factories overseas. That figure still exists. Vince saw it. We started making changes, and just as we were getting to the final approval and going through the phase of negotiating, it was really just legalese because we had agreed to the percentages and the money. Right. I came in and I was sitting in the conference room. It was really Linda and Vince shared an office, and there was a conference room. And Vince walks in and he throws a Galoob catalog on the conference room table, and he says, "Do you know these guys?" And I said, "Well, David Galoob is a very, very dear friend of mine." It was a small industry then. It wasn't like, even though, it's a $30 billion industry, everybody knew each other. And as soon as he threw the catalog on the table, I said, we got a problem. So sure enough, about a week later, we got a letter that he was not going to be moving forward with us. I think Galoob offered him $50,000. And, and eventually, of course, he blew off Galoob, and he ended up going with Jackie Friedman, who also is a dear friend. He should rest in peace. And, LJN got the license. So being one that did not take no very easily, I said I didn't know a lot about the wrestling business, but I knew enough to know that it was still regional, still broken up. Vince controlled New York, and, this guy, the Von Erichs controlled Texas, and so on, or the Southwest.
Right.
But my due diligence led me to Vern Gagne. And I called Vern up on the phone. I was totally transparent with what had taken place and what I wanted to do. I flew out the next day, and I met with both Greg and Vern. And when I left Minneapolis the next day, we had a deal. And when Vern shook your hand, you knew everything was. He was, he obviously. I lost a dear friend when he passed away, and he and his son, his entire family. It was just a fantastic relationship. So what we did is to take you through the entire story. I knew I had to get out there pretty quick because I knew that LJN. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know how they were going to do it. Wasn't going to be articulated. What were the sizes? Scale meant nothing then. So I had introduced a line through DC Comics called Warlords.
Yes,
and
right. Yes.
Yeah, and the Warlords became the Wrestlers. I did nothing other than soft goods. I left their gauntlets or their bracelets on. They had the same boots that they wore back in 1000 BC. Sure. And all I did change heads.
Yeah.
Vinyl heads weren't the greatest. They weren't the greatest sculpts in the world.
I disagree, though, Steve. I think they were good, man. Compare us to the LJN sculpts. I mean, seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Much better.
But it got me into the marketplace before anyone. And we had people debate it, and sometimes you see things on Wikipedia. I mean, Remco was the first manufacturer to have merchandise at retail, as a wrestler, utilizing the AWA. And a lot of the guys that, not a lot of the guys. I mean, if it wasn't for Vern, Vince would never have had a lot of the talent that he had, because, I mean, I met Terry Bollea, before he was even Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And, having spent so much time over the last 10 months with Greg, I wasn't aware, how much of the talent from the AWA was swept away by Vince. And it was all about money. And it was all money, And had Vern had that type of money to back him, I think that the AWA would still be in existence. And who knows, may have bought the WWE. But anyway, we shipped our first 6 or 8 figures. The response was unbelievable. And I don't know, I think we had maybe upwards of, 50 to 70 figures that we finally got in the marketplace. And it was extremely successful. We did, we did the Battle Royale. We went on TV with that. We were the first guys to do tag teams, grudge matches. I mean, the last series I did was Matt Mania. And Matt Mania, we had Nord the Barbarian in there. Just went for $2,500 on eBay. Now, I mean, that's really what happened. Is that's kind of what put me back in the business, because. And by the way, from historically, in my career, after that, I did a lot of other stuff. I did Karate Kid and things like that. But I stayed at Remco till about 1995, and then I went over to Empire as senior vice president of marketing there, and then opened up my own business in the late 90s with a buddy of mine, who you should also get on. His name is Don Robbins. His name is Don Robbins. I don't know if you know who Don is, but Don, my dearest friend in the world, he's my partner. And Don he was the action figure buyer for Toys R Us from the late 70s through the 80s. He was the guy that, he was the guy who did when Star Wars was introduced, the empty packages, with just a little coupon in it.
Oh yeah,
he bought,
totally.
He bought 1,500,000 of them. Obviously he sold every one, but he's an interesting guy. And I'm an action figure guy. I'm a marketing guy. Donnie was the buyer, and of course that's how we became friendly. But anyway, having said that,
we'll get his information from you and definitely have him on. He sounds like a great guest. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, Donnie is not as. I'm never at a loss for words. Donnie's a little quieter, so sometimes you got to pull a couple of things out of him. But he would absolutely be a great guest. Yeah. So this whole wrestling thing. I'm happy to say that what it did was, we were the guy. This whole $1 billion wrestling action figure sector of the toy market. I'm proud to say I had something to do with, and I look back at it now. I can't even believe what happened. It's never gone away. It gets bigger and bigger every year. The collector market has absolutely exploded. Had we had more time, we would have been at San Diego Comic-Con with PowerTown. We are going to be at New York Comic-Con. I haven't even announced that yet. But it's been incredible. And I'm getting. What happened at San Diego Comic-Con and wrestling, is just it's beyond belief. Everything new, the exclusives, and of course, you got guys like Mattel that are doing retros, which they're Remcos. That's what they're
Remcos. 100%.
They're Remcos. Absolutely. They're Remcos. And that's how I got back into the industry. I was retired, sold my business in 2018, and my son found a Facebook page called AWA Remco, wrestling figures. And
I just,
are you really? Okay. So,
yes.
So, TK Kelly, who is the administrator, has become a friend. And he, I didn't sign up initially because I said, if I tell him who I am and what I did, am I going to get inundated with questions and all this kind of stuff? But I did join. I did get inundated, and I had a ball. But I also realized that there is definitely something here.
Yeah,
so I called up Greg, and I'm bouncing now over to PowerTown, and I don't want to stop you guys from asking questions, but
no,
whenever
tell
you
your
want
story.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Tell your story.
So I called up Greg. Hadn't spoken to Greg in quite a while. I don't think I had seen him since his dad's funeral when I flew out to Minneapolis. But I spoke to Greg. I told him what was going on, and they said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Do you think you could get X, Y, and Z?" A lot of the guys that we did, the Baron von Raschke's, who we do have. He is, we got most of those guys we have. And unfortunately, Baron is still with us. But, a lot of our roster, not a lot, maybe 30, 40%, is it is a lot as I look at it. A lot of them are deceased.
Right.
So, we're dealing with the estates. We're dealing, with the widows who have been absolutely, the Charlie Fez, who's, the widow of Lou, and Barb Goodish, who's, the widow of Bruiser Brody, who we just announced last week. They've been absolutely fantastic. And they're great storytellers. Those are great interviews. Trust me. Yeah. And so Greg and I went out. We started. I said, look, here's what we'll do. I want to keep playing golf. I don't want to make this a full-time job because I play golf. I did play golf every day. And I said, let's go get 6 guys. And we'll do a Kickstarter. And we'll make ourselves, a couple of $100,000 each because that's what I felt to get generated based on my projections. And that's the end of it. So Greg goes out. He starts making phone calls. He comes back and he says, well, I had 6, but now I got 12. And I said, okay, so we'll do 12. Then he calls him back the next week. He says, well, I got 24. And we are now up. We have over 200 wrestlers, all of which are, it really is. And, it's all talent that, most people have heard of. Yes, we do have, the Enhanced Entertainment, or as they used to be known as jobbers, because there's a story there. And as an example, we saw, when I hear certain things, and, like I talked to, just before you called, I was on the phone with TA, with Magnum.
Great.
Nice.
He's a great guy. By the way, if you want to get Greg or Magnum on, I'd be happy to set it up. They're both, Greg his stories are just, they'll just blow you away.
Absolutely.
He does an impression of, that's not a problem. I could set that up. So, and I bounce off these guys, well, what do you think? Does this make sense? Is he a C player, a D player? But if there's a story there, like, again, there's this tag, the Mulkeys. Remember the Mulkeys?
Absolutely. That's our area.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, there you go. I heard about them. And I said, well, if you got a guy like Goldberg who won however many matches he won in a row, what about the guys who lost the most?
Absolutely.
And so we signed the Mulkeys. We also have George South, who was part of the tag team that was the first tag team that the Mulkeys ever beat.
Right.
And we'll do a 4-pack of those guys. And will we sell 10,000 of each? Probably not, but we'll do all the right things. And we've got so many guys that have stories. Well, we're not doing anybody who doesn't have a story. Okay.
Of course.
Most important, none of the figures that we will introduce in the marketplace will be an iteration of anything that's been done before. So we don't, we have the option to do a Randy Savage. We have the, Andre the Giant, guys like that, but they've been done a million times.
Sure.
And not that they're not going to sell, but that's not our business model. And, like we were going to do Stan Hansen with Ted DiBiase, but there was a conflict there with Ted and his Legends contract, and it worked out great for us because Bruiser has just been overwhelmingly received over the last week or so. But the reason we were going to do DiBiase and Hansen is because they had never been done as a tag team. DiBiase was done 1 million times as the $1 Million Man. And the last thing we wanted to do was the $1 Million Man again.
Exactly.
So, we're going to be making some major announcements again next week. We're going to be announcing when our pre-orders are going to go up. We're going to be announcing the price point. We pretty much have told everybody we're doing 7-inch scale. And the whole scale thing is kind of, everybody has a different opinion as to what the scale is. Our 7-inch scale is going to be very, very close to what AEW or Jazzwares and Mattel is doing. The difference is, and we will be posting probably next week. I just approved it today. We will actually have a chart out there which will show the difference in our sizes. And each one of our figures will have its own tool. We are not going to be borrowing bodies from other figures. Each one, even if it's a millimeter difference, they will be different in size, which is not to say that the other guys aren't doing it, but we're being told by collectors that they are utilizing different the same tools back and forth. And a guy who may be 6'7", is the same size as a guy who may be 6'5". In our case, it's not going to be that way. The realism. And by the way, also the guy who's doing our sculpting, this guy named Andy Frank, he comes out of Todd McFarlane, and he is a lot of the kudos really go to this guy, because Andy has done just we get all these compliments, but it figures great, this, that, and the other thing, and he's the guy. He's just fantastic. So anyway, that's kind of my story. That's where we stand. We have, like I said, multiple new series that we're going to introduce. We also have some surprises that'll be coming up that we will probably announce at New York Comic Con, major announcement. And so, that brings you kind of up to date.
That's awesome. I mean, Steve, that's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing all of that in such a great and succinct order. So now we're going to bombard you with some of our questions here. So
sure, take your time.
One of my questions that I've always been curious about, as a kid, the Remco figures were everything. My brother and I, who is my co-host, Jared, he actually, our first action figures were the Road Warriors 2-pack.
Right.
That was just somebody, our aunt bought those for us. So those figures are very precious to us. As far as that goes, Road Warriors, RIc Flair, Jimmy Garvin, I know there was a lot of bleed over from the AWA to Crockett. Was there ever any discussion with Crockett of possibly going in that direction, or was it essentially WWF didn't work, okay, AWA's next? Is that just kind of, and that's where you stopped, or was there ever talks of possibly doing Crockett as well?
Well, we did do a Flair figure.
Right.
If you can find one, that's terrific. I remember, and there's a couple of stories there with the Road Warriors and Rick. I was every day I was asking Vern if we can get Rick. So if he sends me to a nightclub on Hudson Street in New York to meet Flair, and Flair, he's a partier. So it's the first time I ever met Rick. So I go inside and he's dancing on a dance floor with some chick. I don't know who she was, and I don't think he knew who she was. But
imagine that.
So he asked me to wait a minute, and he we go out and buy him a drink, and he's a very polite guy. He called me sir. We're probably, he's a little bit younger than me, and he's getting in the ring this weekend. Sure. So anyway, hope he comes out of the ring okay. But so he was calling me sir. He was very, very polite. And when I walked out of there, we had a deal on Flair. And now I cross over to the Road Warriors, and it's the same thing. The Road Warriors, pretty much started and got their start, with Vern. Of course, Paul Ellering, who's a friend, lived in Minnesota, and so Vern says, "Well, here's what you got to do." Now, Ric Flair is one thing. Okay, Adam and Hawk meeting with them, that's a whole other thing.
Sure.
I mean, that's totally fright time. So I said to Vern, I said, first of all, I want to meet in a public place during the day. So he says, I'll tell you what, we're wrestling at Brendan Byrne Arena in New Jersey, where I live. And I says, you'll come to the event the night before. I'll get you backstage. I'll introduce you to him and see if you can set up a meeting. So I came to the event, and I accidentally walked in. When I knocked on their dressing room door, I accidentally, well, the timing could not have been worse. I knocked on the door when Vern and the boys, the three of them, were planning, or, they're into their kayfabe thing. And they were finalizing what was going to happen, about 15, 20 minutes later. And if looks could kill, I thought Hawk was going to kill me. So now I got to go back after the event and ask if I can meet with the guys the following morning. So I said, I think I'll ask Ellering. I don't think I'm going to ask the other two guys. So Paul could not have been nicer. We met the following morning at the Sheraton in Secaucus, which is right by Brendan Byrne, Rutherford, actually. And I come in, and the boys, Animal and Hawk, they're sitting on one side. He couldn't even fit in the booth. And Paul is with me, and I'm sitting over there. And I start to go into my pitch, and Paul says, I'll tell you what, we're very interested, but there's only one thing that matters. And he's got and I swear you, this is a story. He's got an attaché case. Okay. And he opens up the attaché case, and it's all full of money and cash. Wow. Whether that's how they were paid. I never asked Vern. Didn't want to repeat it till I started doing these interviews list. And I said, so what are we talking? And they were looking for $50,000. And so I said, you got a deal. And of course, that's how I got the Road Warriors. We never really did anything with, Crockett, although I will tell you this, we now have a deal with Billy Corgan, which we really,
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have and Billy, when he's not in his pumpkins phase and he starts talking wrestling, I mean, he is all into this, old school. He's really, really into old school. You'll see that our belts, as an example, it's actually the NWA belt. We don't have to. And by the way, I'll tell you this without going into anything more in depth. Every one of our belts will be authentic. It's no more of this, you got to scribble this out or you got to scribble that out, because we do have that's another big announcement. It's coming down the line. Authenticity is really, really, really important to us, especially with, with these pioneers, these greats, these legends. I mean, even my partner TA told me that you got to somehow we put a part in the middle of his, in his hair. They said, I said, I never had a part. I said, well, we'll leave that one as a variant. We'll make a running change. So, we really, to answer your question, no, we never really got involved with Crockett. We did get some talent because Vern, what I also learned is that his son Greg is as well loved and respected as his dad is. Right. Greg he's a sweetheart, as TA is. But the people that he was able to get it, like how we ever got in touch with the Sheik, we found him in Hawaii. He immediately called Greg back, and within 5 minutes we had him signed.
That's amazing.
By the way, is that the Sheik you were talking about, or the Sheik in the WWE?
Well, no, what's funny is my brother is my co-host, Jared, and we call him the Plastic Sheik because he's our action figure expert. So basically we take it from people like Sheik Adnan and Skandar and Iron Sheik. It just kind of our other co-host, Dan, who couldn't make it today, created that name for him. He's a nickname guy. So that's why we call him the Plastic Sheik.
It sounds like a great name for an action figure. So
there you go.
I wrote that down. So
I love
we're going to start announcing our roster, in the next couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of our competition, got a little frustrated because, every time they picked up the phone to try to sign somebody, we've got these contracts with our talent. And there was some questions, which you guys may have heard that, that Matt Cardone and the boys, that they were bringing up about the exclusivity. I don't know if you read that or heard about that, or because
we heard your interview.
Yeah, and we did that for the benefit of the wrestlers because we've got a licensing arrangement, and without the exclusivity, wouldn't give us the right to go out and do, other deals other than action figures. It had nothing to do, and Matt and Brian and Mark, they respect now, what we did. And, I'm really happy I was able to, satisfy that, because I do understand some people thinking that, exclusivity means, you guys can't do anything,
Yeah.
So
Right.
that wasn't the purpose. The purpose is that, a lot of these guys, do need help. A lot of these guys after wrestling, wasn't a lot for them to do. There wasn't a lot of ways to make different income. They didn't have, 401ks. They didn't have pension plans. They didn't have health insurance and stuff like that. And we're really, really trying, to give back to a lot of these guys. And now that Series 1 is coming to fruition over the next 6 to 7 months, the other question they ask is that, how are you guys going to possibly do, 200 figures? It'll take you 10 years. Well, we've got a model. We have some incredible product lines that we're going to be introducing that is going to encompass basically everybody. So everybody's going to benefit from everything that PowerTown is doing.
That's awesome.
That was a long answer to your question, but keep going.
No, that's awesome though. It's awesome. Yeah, this is Jared here, Steve. I've got a question for you. I'm just gonna rattle off some of the products you all had for the Remco line back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
You had, of course, the main figures, and then you had thumbsters.
Thumbsters,
you had a
right?
belt that was like you had the championship belt that was like a holder. You could put the figures on the side.
That's my son on the package, Scott. Scott's the guy who got me involved with the AWA record. Yeah, so he's a celebrity unto his own.
Yeah, that's awesome. You had the mini mashers, which were the
little guys, right?
Little guys, and you had the 2-pack figures with the VHS, and
correct.
You had a was it called Power Slam Wrestling VCR game?
Yeah, Power Slam Wrestling VCR game. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so
you hit it.
I was just looking at that and thinking of the possibilities you can do with this PowerTown brand. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same things, but there's a lot of options. And I know you talked to the Major Wrestling Figure podcast about some of this, about what the opportunities are to do many things with this line. I was just wondering, is there a possibility that PowerTown could do somewhere in there like a retro style with the Remco type bodies on some of these wrestlers, or is that possibility, or like, oh no, that's stupid, we don't want to go back in time? But
all I'll say is,
you think
I'll plead the fifth.
Okay, I'll take that.
I love it.
I'm a huge fan of Remco, and you were talking about Nord the Barbarian earlier. I'm following a eBay purchase right now that I'm not purchasing it myself, but I'm following a listing that's a graded
25
mint on card.
2,500, right?
It's like, well, I think this one is posted for 8,000. I don't know if anybody's made an offer on it yet, but
is that the one? Is that the one in a plastic case?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing, right? 8,000. And the one thing I should have said at the beginning, back in the 80s, and this goes for all I didn't save any of these wrestlers.
Yeah.
I didn't save none. I didn't keep.
Yeah.
I kept the belt because the belt was my son. I did have two. I had the Road Warriors. I had Animal and Hawk autographed. I gave them away to somebody. I don't know who I gave it to. The only thing I have left is a Rick Martel autograph figure. That's all I have.
Rick's
I mean,
great.
and Greg will tell you. He'll tell you the same thing. He saved nothing either. It's just we didn't think of it at the time,
Right.
So shame on me.
Do you? I know. I'd heard in an interview that was it Greg found like a molding of Vern that you all had done that didn't really get mass produced.
Yeah. What happened was, Greg, like me, we kept saying, where could we have possibly get figures in the attic and this and that. Anyway, his sister was having a garage sale, maybe his daughter. And so they went in the attic and they found a bag, not a lot, maybe 10 or 12 figures. A lot of the existing guys from Baron all the way down. And he sends me a picture, and the one guy in the bottom, the body and the head were different colors. And I'm looking at, but the guy was bald that had the hair. I said, Greg, do you have any idea who that is? And his nose was broken because it was made of resin. It was handmade. It wasn't made in 3D. It was made because we didn't have 3D printing then. It was a rubber mold. Right. And I said, that's your dad. And I said I had done, and I really did it. I didn't do it to put it into the line. I did it as a way of thanking Vern. And I put it on a little pedestal and, with a little note in the back thanking him, our friendship and everything else. And that was the figure. It's the only one in existence. It's definitely Vern. It has this, with the cracked nose, it almost looks like Phantom of the Opera. But yeah, it does exist. I was amazed to see it. And, Greg's got it. Of course, it's, very, very special to him. I mean, guys, I told TK Kelly, we're already getting bids on it. People want to buy it.
I'm sure Matt Cardona probably is leading the pack.
I mean, there will be a picture of that coming out in a post shortly, but it really is amazing, and it's definitely him. I mean, absolutely no doubt in my mind that it was him. And so that's another one. It's a holy grail.
Oh, sure. Now, what's funny is I don't think until the Jack Specific Classic Superstars line, I'll be honest, I know you kind of knocked it earlier, but the face sculpts on the Remco action figures were the best, possibly up until the time of the Classic Superstars by Jack Specific, because not to knock LJN, I love those figures as much as I loved Remco. We played with them. In fact, the figures, the Road Warrior 2-pack we actually got an LJN ring. So it wasn't really in scale, but that was just what our aunt bought us. So, it's kind of funny. It was always kind of reminiscent of that larger ring. But then our cousin had the AWA ring, so we played with that, and it was much better. But long story short, the face sculpts, were those just the factories and someone initially made those? Or tell us a little bit about those face sculpts.
We did those sculpts. We did the sculpts in the U.S., and I can't remember the guy's name. It was a famous toy sculptor at the time. And, I had to approve all the sculpts. So when I approved the sculpts, when they eventually came back from Hong Kong, from China, I said, "This is not what I approved." But we were so far behind. We weren't far behind the 8 ball. I had just, really put out the edict that we have got to be the first guys in the marketplace. So, I approved what we got. We put them out. I wasn't 100% happy with them. In fact, a couple of them I changed. There's a couple of variations of Greg, that are out there. But I think that, we did them here. And remember, they were all made, it was all done with clay. The ones we're doing now, everything is, it's digital. So, we can have it, in an hour versus a week or 2 weeks. And, but I think my reference earlier is when I look at, and a perfect example is the close-up of Bruiser Brody. And, you look at that head, look at those eyes, whether or not we had the ability, we probably really, I don't think a hand sculpture would ever be able to capture that like that. Maybe they could, but that's right now. I'm comparing myself to what I did back in the 80s, and and look, the 80s. The 80s were the 80s. I mean,
sure.
Even when I did Karate Kid, I look at that figure now, and I mean, I remember when I actually had to meet. Nobody in my company wanted to do Karate Kid. Nobody. Yeah, nobody believed in the movie. And finally I said, I'll tell you what, guys, if you don't want to do it, okay, then I will put up the advance money as long as I can share the profits with you. And they said, well, you really believe in it that much? So what I did is I was friendly with this guy, Les Borden, who was senior vice president of Columbia Pictures. And so I called Les up. I told him what I wanted to do. And he set up a meeting for me with a gentleman by the name of Jerry Weintraub. And Jerry was, Jerry produced The Diner, and he produced all the Ocean 11 pictures, but he was the godfather of the Karate Kid. So I flew out to California and met with Jerry, told Jerry what I wanted to do. And he said, well, I'm not going to have any problem, with Marty Cove, who was the bad sensei, or Miyagi, which was Pat Morita, and so on. But I may have a problem with Ralph Macchio. So I said, well, is there any chance, I could discuss this with Ralph? So he said, look, you're in town. He's filming a movie called Crossroads, which was kind of similar to Karate Kid, only about him being a guitar player.
Right.
I went over to the Columbia Pictures lot. I met with Ralph in his trailer, and he said, well, his concern was that he, it's like he was reading a crystal ball. He didn't want to be typecast as the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
So my answer to him was, is that, well, let me give you this analogy. It certainly didn't hurt Harrison Ford to become Han Solo. And he said, you know something? You're right. And of course, he gave me the rights to his name and image and everything else. And the Karate Kid was fantastic. And, I have intentions, along with what you guys asked me earlier, and I told you I pled the fifth. I have intentions of doing something with the Karate Kid, because it's been done a million ways since Sunday lately, Cobra Kai, etc. But there's a couple of things that haven't been done. And, being the, quote, the father of the Karate Kid, for lack of a better terminology, I think there's still something that hasn't been done that should be done. So, that's just another story. And I got tons of stories, but we take, we'll do that over a beer. So where are you guys located?
We're in Virginia, North Carolina area. So
okay.
Yeah. Hits the Appalachian accent.
The Appalachian. Okay, got it.
So, I was going to just kind of hand it over to Jared. He's been following the PowerTown as closely as possible. So, Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, so I love that the roster you all put together that I've kind of seen, and I guess it's as up to date as it can be without you all formally announcing everybody. But
you can ask if we have somebody, and I'll tell you if we haven't. Okay. That's what you're.
Okay. So I saw you have like Cowboy Bobby Duncombe and his sons,
right?
And did I see Bobby the Brain Heenan listed? Possibly.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Diamond Dallas Page. Did I see him listed?
Yep. The thing with Page is, I think, similar to DiBiase. We're not sure what's going on there with the legacy, the whole legacy thing with the WWE. Right. But Dallas is a real friend, and I'm sure somewhere down the line we will do the figures. But he is, quote, on our roster.
Great.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Diamond Dallas Page. He's
a great guy.
In the 90s, he was my favorite. He was my favorite wrestler by far. I saw you had the Rougeau family.
Got the whole family, everybody, all of them.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Tony Atlas.
Yep.
Did I see him? Yeah.
Yep.
Gorgeous George. I know I've heard you talk about him.
And that was. You have no idea what we went through to get that. I mean, you talk when you got to go through lineage,
right?
And who's around and who's not around. And we are really excited about Gorgeous George, and I can tell you that he will be in the next series.
Did I see Harley race? Did I see Harley?
Yep, we got Harley.
That's awesome.
And the Poffo family, of course, which includes Randy and
Randy. We got all the Koloffs. We got all the Vachons.
That's awesome.
Oh man,
yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
This just bubbles up nostalgia inside of me, and I know that there's a lot of people I'm 40, and I know there's a lot of people in my age range. That's the collector market right now, is people my age that want to see from their childhood, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to invest in the Kickstarter when you get that going. So,
well, we'll have some announcements about that next week. You'll probably be hearing something about that.
That's awesome.
We got a very exciting announcement coming out about that.
I totally understand where you're coming from, like with certain wrestlers. I mean, like a Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant or whoever. There's a million of them. I mean, and a lot of this roster are people who should have had multiple figures by now, but maybe have one or none. And it's just awesome that these people are getting represented, and that their families, if they're passed on, that their families can, kind of get some recognition for them and some financial support.
Exactly.
For their legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. That was our. I mean, it's like I said, it didn't. didn't start out that way when Greg and I started talking. And, you know, and by the way, we're not stopping. We have we're very close to signing another really, really, really major name who I'm shocked nobody has done. But, you know, until such time that I actually have it, I don't want to announce it. But, you know, it's you know, people, you know, the key is that every one of these wrestlers will have a figure. Okay. We have multiple, you know, we're well funded. We're self-funded right now. The Kickstarter only because, you know, that's what this thing started as. We got too far into it. Having my druthers, I would have done it a different way, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. But we do have, you know, we have multiple product approaches to make sure everybody participates and everybody has revenue coming in. Not to mention, we also have 5 or 6 other product categories that are going to evolve around the wrestling figures that are not figures, that have never been done, that we have patents on, and they're extremely collectible. They're absolutely fantastic. I mean, we actually, you know, the funny thing is, I was thinking about getting the collector market, but initially I was going to do it in, you know, other sports venues. Okay. Right. We had entree to, like, we were going to do some Yankee icons and stuff like that. And it just, now everything we're doing now, or we're going to do then, you know, has, you know, moved right over to the wrestling community. And, you know, what I'm also amazed at is how many great wrestlers there really are. Yeah. You know, I never, and the fact that a guy like, that's why if you have a guy like Greg on, not to mention TA is terrific too, because he knows everybody, but the history that Greg knows, you know, all the way back to Hard Boiled Haggerty, who I never heard of. You know, I thought that was an A company. I don't know what Hard Boiled Haggerty was. You know, and these names that you know, John Leo, or what is
Don Leo Jonathan?
Don Leo Jonathan. Okay. Yeah. You know, I'm just learning. I'm learning a lot about these guys, and you know, you ask Greg. You know, when you have Greg on, and I'll make sure that happens. You've got to ask him to tell. You got to ask him to tell you the story about the time that Greg and about 5 or 6 other guys were flying back. I think it was from Fargo to Minneapolis. Okay, after an event, and they had a Mad Dog on a plane. And the story. Every time I'm with him, I ask him to tell a story. He does an imitation of Mad Dog, who actually sounded like Popeye. That's the way he sounded. But the story, when they were in the plane and the things that happened, and he's a great storyteller. So,
well, thank you so much, Steve. You know, Jared, do you have any other questions for Mr. Rosenthal?
Steve,
I think I'm good, Steve. And I just want to say we really appreciate your time on here. And, you know, it's awesome to talk to you about Remco and PowerTown, because, you know, we are true wrestling fans and wrestling figure fans. So I appreciate you taking the time and being willing to do this for us.
That's no problem. If you have any questions, you know, after the fact, off the air, whatever that I can answer, just feel free to give me a shout. No problem. Anytime. You got my number.
Absolutely, Steve. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling Podcast action figure segment with Steve Rosenthal from PowerTown Wrestling. Now, with that being said, this is a special bonus episode of the action figure segment. Can't thank Steve enough. We went to one of the godfathers of the business. So once again, make sure that you get in touch with Steve on all of the social media levels for PowerTown Wrestling. Make sure you follow them. Steve, can you share those with us real quick?
Yeah, it's hashtag PowerTown Wrestling. That's Instagram. Facebook page is simply PowerTown Wrestling. And if they want to subscribe to our emails, which we hope they do, or just get us their email address, they go to Relativity.
Okay.
RelativityWorldwide.com, and we're going to be sharing a lot of really, really exciting information over the next week or so.
That sounds amazing. Again,
I'm on that list.
Yeah, and I apologize to you for not, I've been all over the guys that we should have been sending emails out earlier, but
okay.
We got some exciting things that are going to be happening, like I said, in the next week or so. So we'll be sharing that with you guys before we share it with anybody else.
Sounds great. Well, thank you all for listening so much to this interview with Steve Rosenthal. Once again, we greatly appreciate him and can't wait to see the products that come up and happen as they are. All right. Once again, for Steve Rosenthal, the Plastic Sheik, and the Professor, thanks for listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
This has been a James Rock Street production.